Wu-Man, good to see you.
Great to see you too, Jeremy. Thanks for joining me on the Wu-Man Chu Chronicles.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will say before we get started, you're the first person that I've seen in 3 months that I'm happy that's wearing a mask. It's fantastic.
Wearing the superhero gloves and like Batman and everything
Oh, it looks
too.
great.
So.
It looks great.
Indeed, and yeah, I'd like to welcome everyone and that's joining us or soon to be joining us, either now or later, um, to the Wu-Man Chu Chronicles. What we're doing is we're raising funds for the comedians and the bar staff and the baristas that are involved with Sureth Fest this year with the Wu-Man Chu Chronicles. And the Stress Fest is happening July 15th through the 19th. It's free of charge, 5 days of music and comedy. So join us in Pueblo, Colorado. It's going to be awesome. So without further ado, this is my guest, Jeremy Baldwin.
Hey guys, how we doing?
Fantastic. For sure. We met in Jacksonville Beach at Habibi.
We
He
did.
used to run a room there.
We did.
And
Yes.
how did you link up with Habibi and the whole thing?
It was so funny. My comedy partner and my roommate for some time, Devin Connor, we were running the circuit here in Jacksonville, and we wanted to put something on that allowed us to grow our abilities as hosts and put together a production that we could be proud of. And it was one night out of the blue. We always kind of congregated at that spot, and we talked to the owner who knew us pretty well, and he was very open. His name was Mark. And he was very integral to getting us that start as far as hosting our own shows, which was just amazing from and generous from him. And we got that started. We did it for 2 years, and I couldn't have been prouder on the production that we put on. It was always a learning experience and good experiences.
Absolutely, it was so much fun, and like my old road dog Alex, we were so cheesed when we saw our
Yes.
names on the flyer. We're like, oh man, we were so hungry. We were like, we want all the stage time we can get, and you guys set us up with like 10 minutes each. I think it was like both
Oh yeah,
times.
yeah. You and Alex, I can't tell you how much I appreciate having you two on. I think it was our second or third show, and it almost added credibility to our show. And it was really incredible to see you guys perform, or see you two perform. And Alex is such a funny guy. Sareth is such a funny guy, and it just added another element that we didn't know that we could add with high level performers and people that have been doing it for a while, and it just gave us more confidence. So can't tell you how much I appreciated that.
Oh, absolutely. He tells me that all the stories of your interviews from those nights too. So those
Oh
are some fun on
yes.
the patio. Good times. Good times.
I counted how many. I don't know. I was so nervous. It was my first like sit down, like, hey, we want to film you, and it was awesome to be asked that. I counted how many times I said definitely, and it must have been 25. I said the same word over and over again. I'm sure I'll do the same thing tonight. It was so funny.
Man, he says "indeed" a lot. And I'm like, oh man. So that's why he edits his like voice out of all the interviews. It's
Yes, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
many indeeds.
It was so quick and easy, and he made me feel so comfortable, and it was fantastic. I was so happy to do it.
Indeed. And so, speaking of Jacksonville Beach, it's located in Florida, and you grew up in all kinds of places in Florida. Like, which cities were you like all
Yeah,
over?
so I've lived in Florida, most of my life, or pretty much all of my life, and Jacksonville in particular. But my father moved to Tampa when I was around 10 or 11, and we lived down there for a year or so. And he moved to Orlando, and then he was in Naples, and then Miami. So I've been kind of all over the place, and I was able to kind of tell the different types of uh, uh, life, and more importantly, the more different types of humor. You go further south, and it's a different type of humor than further north. I played Billy D's Music Bar and Grill. I did one of my first shows up there, and that's a whole different crowd than going down to Miami and playing a mic, or a whole different crowd than going down to Orlando. And it's kind of given me a little bit of an advantage playing rooms down here, knowing how to tailor all that stuff to the different people in the different areas, and it's really nice. Now, I will say that Florida in and of itself has given me kind of an edge playing shows in the Northeast, only because everybody likes making fun of Florida, and I get it. I completely understand it.
Indeed, they always pick on us, those jerks. But
I know, man. We're not all bad. We're pretty good.
oh man, I remember like when I got roasted. It's on YouTube, like 500 views. All he said that I was starting from the bottom and working my way up. And but like Florida has like the best comedy scene, like hands down.
Oh, it's great. It's so fantastic. I mean, Miami is considered, the New York of the South, and I can see why. I mean, the caliber of comedians and the caliber of people down there, it's incredible to see, and I really do think that the Florida, climate for comedy is perfect. I think everybody has an open mind and everybody's willing to laugh at anything, so it's really fantastic.
Yep, and you don't have to deal with snow like in most states, and you can just travel like tour year round
Yep.
nonstop.
Yep. There's always something going on. There's never a night that's dull. So it's always been pretty great.
I dig it, and I love how like everyone's all linked together somehow, some way, like some like degree of separation.
Absolutely. It was, I did the Jackie Knight show. I did a couple of shows for her, and meeting the people that would travel up from, even as close as Daytona, all the way from Orlando and further south. And you always meet somebody new, and they always have something to add to, your experience down here. So it's great.
Absolutely, and yeah, it's like and so you started doing performing stand up at the age of 17, like.
I did. I didn't know it though.
Really?
I was always, yeah, I didn't know that's what it was. But later on, I kind of figured out, wow, that was my first set. That was my first, because I was a big drama nerd. I was a part of the drama club from my 9th grade year on to 11th grade, and I performed a monologue. I'm showing my true colors here. I performed a monologue, and it was a 10-minute one-man, and I just riffed on jokes, and it was, and I didn't realize that was what it was until, I started thinking about, wow, I really refined some of the, the original jokes that I had and all this, that and the other. But I played my first couple sets when I was 17, and my mother, who's been a big supporter of me doing comedy, probably more so than anybody's been to most of my shows, would be the ones that, either take me to and from shows or be at every one of my shows. So she's been an integral part of helping me kind of improve as a comic, which has been great.
That's awesome. I remember seeing your mom at those shows and how all the jokes that you would say through the mic, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is pretty awesome.
She
Oh,
has
man.
such an open mind when it comes to my jokes about her. And my favorite joke that I do, and it's quick, but she's been remarried once, so she's only been married twice. But I kind of embellish it a little bit. But I say, moms like to. I like rap music. I'm a big fan of rap music. Although my mom thinks it's the bad influence, but that's kind of a mom's job. Moms like to spin things out of proportion. I remember I didn't screw in a soda cap tight enough one day, and I got an hour-long lecture on why abstinence before marriage was a good idea. My mom's really big on the idea of marriage, so much so that she's done it 3 times.
Oh man.
Which she is so like on board with that joke, except every time I do it or she gets wind that I do it, she'll text me and say, "It's only twice, you jackass."
Oh man. It's always great to embellish jokes, it's like that's the best part of
Oh,
it.
it's awesome. It's awesome. She has one of the best senses of humor, and I loved having her at all those shows, and I wish I could have her at more, but she's down here, and I'm doing all my shows up north right now. So it's been, she's been so helpful, and I couldn't imagine having another mom that would be against all those jokes that I tell about her, but she's got a good spirit about it.
Indeed. And you moved up to the Big Apple, New York City, and you toured the Northeast comedy circuit. What's that like?
I tell you, it was actually very welcoming. I thought I was very intimidated at first, only because I didn't know what to expect, and coming from Florida and having a pretty good knowledge of the scenes down here. But I was very quickly introduced to a lot of people that helped my career when I was up there, and I actually ran into. I don't know if he's from Jacksonville, but Jacksonville's own Ted Barton. He moved up to New York. I ran into him at a mic up there, and he was nothing but nice. And Gary Pettinella, who was he owns a bar up in Connecticut. He was very helpful to me when I first started up there, giving me tips and advice. but it's so much fun being able to, it's not a competition. Everybody's there to laugh, but it's so much fun seeing where you stack up against other comedians. And I feel like New York has such a diverse um, group of comedians that are up there, and they're always hungry to get stage time. So it really makes you better as a comedian, being able to see other people do what they do, and work a lot of techniques and different things that you can spin on jokes or spin on bits that can really propel you to do better. And it's been incredible to me to be able to see that.
Indeed, and you describe your comedy as like slightly dark and self-deprecating. What
Yeah.
made you go that route?
So, I mean, I've always had a darker sense of humor. I know you can, or Sareth can understand because of the jokes that I've said with my mom in the audience. But I feel like, it's kind of cliche to say, you go in and you make fun of yourself before anybody else can make fun of you. I get that it's a little bit cliche, but I've always, I was never heavily picked on or anything, but I was able to, take a lot of the things that people have said and find the humor in it at a young age. So one guy walked up to me and said, didn't know this guy at all. He was in high school. He said, "You look like Captain America before the transition." And I was like, "Guy, that's fairly accurate. That is absolutely, that was good. I appreciate that." And so the self-deprecation has always come, pretty natural to me, and finding the humor in myself so I can portray it to other people, which has been, the way I've been doing comedy for the last 4 or 5 years.
Indeed, I didn't know how close like the states were up in the Northeast, and that's
Tell you
wild.
what,
Like
neither did I.
45 minutes to Connecticut. That's wild.
Yeah, what's great about it was, I have my grandparents that live up there, and they live in Shelton, Connecticut, which is, you take a train ride, it's 45 minutes. There's only a couple stops, and you could be back in the city, or train ride to Boston's only an hour and a half, 2 hours. So it's really not that bad. And it is really interesting because you look at Florida and you find all these, it's huge. It's the size of pretty much all the states in the Northeast. And you see how diverse, we were talking about earlier, how diverse the people are just in the one state. But going up state to state, those things that make each state different about their humor, their comedy is magnified every single time you leave. Boston has a different sense of humor than New York, but they all are able to come together and really get find the humor in most of everything, which is great. So,
Indeed, have you ran into any famous folks up in those areas?
a couple of them. I'm gonna drop some names, but not too many. Pete Davidson I ran into, which super nice guy. Got to work there, and at one of the shows, that it was a fundraiser for No Kids Hungry, which was really great. And then I ran into Janine Garofalo at the Stand in New York City, which was really, I've always loved that. Loved her act, and was able to meet her and see her perform, which was incredible. Those sound like lesser known names to layman's and to people that don't understand, but those two people are some of the people that inspire me to do comedy, which was amazing, because I was just like, wow, this is incredible.
Man, that's pretty gnarly just to see like just famous comedians just walking around.
Just up close. Yeah. It was so cool. And it was even cooler. One of my favorite comedians, Doug Stanhope, when he was in Jacksonville, I got to meet him. He played at Hourglass, which formerly known as Hourglass, if I'm not mistaken. But I got to meet him and talk to him for a little bit after the show that they did there. And that was cool too. Just not even having to leave and see him and get introduced to him, which was really, really neat.
Absolutely. He performed in Daytona Beach, and that was pretty wild. Like,
I bet.
Oh man, he's at the Nog, my favorite homeroom to perform in. So if he gets a chance to go to perform at the Nog when this is all over at the COVID, definitely
I'd love to
hit up the Nog. Like,
I'd love to.
I've
seen you post about it, or Sareth post about it, which I'd love to check that room out. That would be fantastic.
It's legendary. The lighting is perfect. The sound is perfect. You just can't ask for more. And it's like a hole in the wall, and so it's like everyone makes fun of it, but everyone from Melbourne to Orlando, from
They know about it.
Jacksonville just goes there because it attracts people like that. So
Yeah.
it's amazing. So what do you got planned for like the next 5 years or in the future? What's next for you?
That's a, I've never been good at planning, but I'd love to be able to, continue to grow and do what I'm doing. I it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out with COVID, and I hope and wish that everybody is going to ride this out and stick to staying inside and really trying to beat this thing. But my plan is to, save up a little bit more money and determine after the next 4 or 5 months whether I want to continue to perform in New York City or move to Boston, which, like I said, the train ride, it wouldn't be too much of a difference being able to do shows in New York. But I love the comedy scene in Boston. It's fantastic. And the people out there that I've met have been very nice and helpful towards everything that I'm doing. Miami is also another thing that I'm looking into as far as the comedy scene. I've heard that they've had, a lot of really great comedians come out of Miami and learn from the people that are down there. So hopefully moving into and seeing, different areas to progress my comedy. And then eventually, I think I actually spoke to you about this when we did or Sareth, when we did our first interview, touring and doing some shows in the Midwest and getting all the way out to, California one day, which would be fantastic.
Indeed, that'd be pretty awesome. Just
It would be.
finding like a big old comedy hub. Those are
Yes.
some really good scenes. Like I know like Bill Burr and like Patrice O'Neill are from Boston and stuff like that, and I see those documentaries, and that's a
Yeah.
lot of history back there. And I think Joe Rogan probably lives
Yes.
there.
Yeah, he did the circuit in Boston, and and that's another thing that I never took for granted when I was when we were able to perform. Just the figures that had stood on the stage before me, and knowing all the greats that had been there, and walking into the cellar, and just knowing that other people that had, that are, in my mind, my heroes and idols, knowing that they had been in the same place was I was awestruck. It was incredible.
Indeed, I really do hope you get on that tour to the Midwest, because there's nothing
Hopefully.
like the Midwest, and it needs a lot of love. I'm thinking about going on tour again too, so we'll see how that works out.
Well, maybe I'll see you out there on the circuit. That would be wonderful.
That'd be awesome for sure. But yeah, you got any shows coming up after this COVID?
So I'm very excited about the Sureth Fest. That's going to be fantastic to perform, and something that I was so humbled to be invited to. A lot of the bookers that I know have been kind of riding this out, not really knowing when everything would be open back up, and I've been kind of riding along with them, and really just taking a back seat and doing a lot of writing. So a lot of the shows that I would normally perform or normally be booked for have been, postponed or canceled until further notice. So I'll be waiting until we get word on when everything, all the clubs will be open back up, and a lot of the normal stomping grounds will be back up and running. I did think that, I was watching an interview. I couldn't remember who it was by, but they were saying that it's gonna be changed for a little while now. A lot of the comedy scenes that we know, especially in New York, not even strictly from the amount of cases, but when things start clearing up, and the curve is flattened and everything, or even to the point where we get a vaccine, it's going to be different. People are going to be concerned about going out and catching something or anything like that. So hopefully everybody is being smart. That's the only thing that you can really hope for now.
Indeed, I hope we don't live stream it, because there's nothing like a live audience
Oh,
for anything.
I'm like a junkie now. I'm kind of fiending for some live audience and some kind of stage time. I'm tired of watching TikToks. I've done it too much now in the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely, same here. Oh man, they're invading every social media platform. It's just
I can't believe it. I gave in and I made a couple of them did well, but a couple of them, I get it. I mean, it as an app as a whole, it's promoted creativity, which, so I can't really hate too much about it. But it certainly has invaded all of social media.
Yep. And this is another form of creativity, and so that's why I'm so thankful for StreamYard, because it's so much easier to use than any other platform. And yeah,
Yes.
and any final shout outs you'd like to give to the audience that's gonna watch this later?
Yeah, no, thanks to everybody that ends up watching it. I appreciate it. Huge shout out to Wu-Man. You're a legend, my man. I love it. Um, I basically been saying it all. Shout outs as we've been going along. Shout out to my mother for supporting me, and shout out to a lot of the clubs in New York. Laughing Buddha, who has allowed me a lot of stage time when I was up there. Gary Pettinella, who was a very good role model in the Northeast comedy scene. Uh, and just you guys continue to support me, and I'll continue to pump out some pretty good creative material. Hopefully, we'll see you soon in the future.
Absolutely. And as a friendly reminder, scrolling on the bottom is all of Jeremy's socials that you can follow him on, and also uh, how you can pay him through Venmo and all that good stuff, and help out all the comedians. And also, there's also scrolling on the bottom, bartenders at Smitty's Greenlight Tavern. If you get the chance, tip their virtual tip jar that way.
Yes, please do.
Indeed, and the Hanging Tree Cafe in Pueblo, Colorado, where Threat Fest is going to be happening. Their restaurants open. Order takeout, delivery. They have great vegetarian food, vegan food, and if you're a carnivore, they have meat dishes too. But they have great drinks as well. So definitely support them, support us, and we hope to see you on the stage soon. For Wu-Man Chu and Jeremy Baldwin, this is the Wu-Man Chu Chronicles signing out. Up, and away. Great to
Bye,
see you.
guys.
Take
Thank
care.
you guys so much. All righty.
Thank you, bud.
All right. Bye bye.
Awesome.